No longer wanted for murder, the Runaways try to settle into their new home and new realities. But not everyone is adjusting to this change in family dynamic, and their quest to connect may end up being their biggest danger. It's the high cost of secrets on Marvel's Runaways, Season 2, Episodes 4, 5, and 6. Old School, Rock Bottom, and Bury Another. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our continuing reviews of Marvel's Runaway Season 2. So yes, as usual, lots of spoilers ahead. Alright, so getting into a bit of nitty-gritty here, dealing, like I said, with a lot of the high cost of secrets. And if there's sort of one theme that's continuing over this little block of episodes, it seems pretty much centered around that. And of course, secret number one, let's talk about Topher, our new cast member. Well, ends up being temporary cast member. And, you know, it makes sense why there is a lot of suspicion, obviously, against a new person sort of just wandering in, following Molly off of the streets. With everything the group has been in, yeah, they're not going to be just open arms. Molly, on the other hand, very understandable why she is so ready to open up. Having lost all of her family, she is hoping this might be a reconnect, somebody long lost, again, another member of the family that she can sort of connect into, and also the first person that she's met that has the glowing eyes, that has the strength, that seems to have the same powers that she does. So the suspicion of this being a different family member, maybe some sort of genetic contribution, aka mutant, and not sort of an induced power like Molly was suspecting initially, and which ends up being the reality of the case, totally makes sense. And as for Topher himself, I think they handled this character really well. We, of course, as an audience, are also going to be suspicious of this new person, but they did a really good job of making him seem very amicable, very understanding, very reaching out, as somebody who's experienced on the street and wants to sort of show the kids away, and sort of making sense if this is somebody who also has powers, that now as he is connecting with another group of powered kids, this looks like just sort of a natural extension of the family. He is understandable on everyone's suspicions. He doesn't push things. I mean, sure, digging his way out of the bedroom to get past Lace just to bring breakfast back. Sure, little bit of suspicion there. But again, coming back with food, with a whole spread and setup, totally makes sense. He's very understanding. He is willing to help. Jumping back into Atlas School, getting the cards. I was curious about where the cards came in. And maybe somebody answer me. Were those supposed to be Ubers or Lyfts? I guess there seems to be some sort of Lyft contract agreement with the producers of Runaways, since that's always the car service they use. But I was kind of curious because I didn't see any drivers in the cars. I didn't know, like, are they driving them? Did he just get cars? Were these brought up? I'm not entirely sure. Even as we got the entire drive to Atlas Academy, we're pretty much dealing with just Topher and Nico in the back. Nico playing. Again, this is one of those really, I think, nicely done scenes on both ends, both Topher and Nico. Topher is reaching out, using some of this widespread knowledge to connect with Nico, his knowledge of Wicca and his point of view, his symbols and powers and stuff, does seem to connect in with Nico. And yet the fact that she is using this whole time to get close, to make his pocket, to get his little vial of stuff, I thought was really nicely done. But yeah, like I said, we didn't see any drivers in any of those, so maybe I missed something. You guys let me know what you thought. I don't think it's the new driverless cars. I think it's still a little early for that level of technology. But again, we sort of appreciate that whole dynamic, and especially since everything kind of falls apart with the unexpected earthquake while they're at Atlas, and seeing the parents and having to run, that Topher is still able to get the computer, get what the kids need. Again, these are all steps up. And when they discover about the vial, and Topher goes into his whole story. Manufactured as it is, it's told well. It's used to garner sympathy, and I think that's really the big thing. I think they orchestrated his character so well because, as an addict, he does want to come across as amicable. He does want to come across as helpful. He does, I mean, even at the end when he's trying to leave and he spots Gert, is it just to give him a reason to go? Maybe, but he does play it off nicely about, oh, you need meds? There's something wrong with your head? I can go help with that. He does seem to be, from a character standpoint, really reaching out and attempting to connect with everyone. But considering that all of that is being used to get to his final goal, to get to the map, to find out about the rocks, where they might be, where he can get some more, it was handled so incredibly well. Even we get the false story of his suburban life, and he was thrown out and his parents didn't like him, and then we get the great switchback of seeing what the reality of that picture is. I thought it was so really well done. It sucks us in as the audience, so that when the reality is exposed, we are in a similar mindset as to the rest of the characters. Confused and yet suddenly going, my suspicions now make sense. Finding out that he was there at the accident that created Molly, that's where he got the rocks, and therefore the rocks not only giving him strength, but also reducing his aging process and driving him a bit insane. He wasn't thrown out, or maybe he was thrown out by his parents because he's an addict, because he'd be doing crazy things. He hurt his dad. He can't walk anymore as he reacts off of his sister. I mean, again, it was a perfect sort of blend of showing the dangers of addiction, that everything looks really good, but when it's exposed, everything kind of goes to hell. Again, I just thought that was wonderfully done. And it goes seeing Molly's reaction to all of this as well. Someone that she's trying to reach out with, somebody that seems so connected and that can turn on a dime. And that it's Molly who sort of initially steps up. Said, you can't stop me. Well, actually, I think I can. Was perfect. Very much in Molly's character. And yes, Topher did sort of hand Molly her butt there for a quick moment, but he gives a great interaction. That whole sequence at the house where we have Topher reacting and then the rest of the team trying to back Molly up and do what needs to be done. Molly trying to keep Nico from using the staff and hurting Topher. It was a wonderful whole dynamic. But we did get to see the team working well together, despite the negativity, and ultimately seeing Topher's heroic side. That he is lashing out, he is in hurt, he's in pain. What do you say about the rocks? This is the only thing that makes my life bearable. But when that dumpster gets reflected back towards Gert in the car, that Topher does step up and says, I can't allow this person to get hurt. It shows that there is goodness in him. There is a heroic side. It has just been overrun by this addictive powers that he has. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, this is something that Topher can reconnect, because that's a great change from character, to go from possible ally to dangerous addict to someone who is willing to sacrifice himself to do the right thing. That's heroism right there, right? Now, also dealing with things kind of outside their control is Gert, who we've seen a really kind of interesting, I think, evolution of her character. We didn't get much into her anxiety and mental issues and such during Season 1. This is really something that we're diving in more here in Season 2, which sort of makes sense. She isn't in the same environment. She's not at home. Doesn't have her meds, doesn't have the structure and everything else that allows her individual expression to occur. Here we're seeing someone who's really having difficulty being in this new position. With an underground house that's a huge mess. Yes, there's family, but it's not the same dynamic she has. Molly is starting to pull away. And again, internally, mentally, she's really going through a roller coaster ride. And again, this is something else I think they handled really well in this show and these past few episodes, is sort of seeing the long-term effects of that sort of degradation. Chase is there, which is great. And certainly that kind of new relationship is helpful. I mean, and she's expressed that a few times, as how much having him around has sort of helped. And yet, as with any relationship, Chase kind of gets a lot of the crap for what Molly is going through. And then eventually down the road, that is what sort of kind of causes their little split. But again, it's sort of a light seeing what they had. Again, I like the sort of slow pain. I like the bit where she's brushing her teeth and she's talking about feeling, her teeth decay as she's sitting right there. She was talking with Topher, asking about going to get meds. That was great. And I have to say, it really kind of annoyed me from one standpoint with Gert going to the nurse's office. I mean, in some ways, kind of smart, I guess, if you can just pull off the fact that, yes, you're no longer wanted for murder and now you're back at school and you need some medication that the nurse is going to have for you, because it's that type of school. Great. On the other hand, you're exposing yourself, doing exactly the opposite of what everybody else is trying to do. Make sure you're not being seen. And she just goes straight in there. Which, of course, does end up getting the parents called, and that's what brings them there. So, but again, it makes sense because we have seen over these past couple episodes that anxiety grabbing onto her, that all of that again, mental sort of degradation, getting away from what she saw, being uncomfortable in her own skin, that she is looking for some way to alleviate that, even just a little bit. I love the whole driving sequence, how she's so much wanting to just be, I was supposed to drive and stay in the car, and now I've got to do a chase scene down through L.A. Love that. That was awesome. Of course, that's why she stays in the car and ends up being put in the danger from that battle sequence, but also saved by Topher. So, again, she's seeing all of that, but that urge to connect and help Molly, help her sister, the one other family member that she sort of has that she can connect with. I really loved that scene where after everything that Molly went through in losing Topher, that Gert is there to try and talk her through it. Just, you have a family. We're going to be here for you. We're the people that will always come back. We're always going to support you. Which, in a way, becomes a little prophetic. And is she doing almost a future apology at that standpoint, considering that right afterwards, or that night, morning, she sneaks out and heads to the hospital to eventually try and get her medication. But that involves then calling Janet. An unexpected call. Again, Janet has sort of been played as this dark horse. I mentioned this in the last review, and certainly through these episodes as well. Her strength is really coming forward. Kind of like Robert. She is almost, her greatest ability is the fact that people underestimate her. Maybe that's why she and Robert sort of had that little connection, as well as being sort of both in abusive relationships. But yeah, I did find that interesting that was Janet that Gert had reached out to, and not her own parents, who might be of pride the most reasonable. Now, she might have additional suspicions since with the death of Graciela, she did find the little vial of memory removal medicine that her parents did develop. So perhaps that's one of the reasons why she wasn't reaching out to them as much. But also in the same sense, there's a safety level to reaching out to someone who is not your family. She doesn't have to deal with the dynamics and the stress and everything else. And so it's interesting that she does that reach out maybe to avoid the stress that she would get. And yet, however, having Chase to come get her and forcing that interaction between Chase and his mom, just sort of, transferred that. Well, I don't have to deal with my parents, but you can deal with your parents. You're much more capable. Is that what she was sort of thinking of? Or, I don't know, after meeting with Janet, was she hoping to have maybe some little, that some connection could be fostered since Janet came? Maybe she isn't so bad, and therefore maybe that gives Chase a chance to sort of reconnect with his parents, something that Gert doesn't feel like she can do right there. I'm not really sure which way that was going. But it does, of course, put a lot of strain on, and eventually breaks, the relationship that she has with Chase. Because Chase was also very rightful in that point. I wouldn't have done what you just did. I wouldn't have put you in that position to be blindsided by a parent that right now they're all very certain are mass murderers. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed, I've enjoyed a lot of the Gert-Chase relationship and how they have handled Gert's attempts to deal with her mental issues and eventually having to cave in and having to get meds and then having the cost of that be the relationship. They're keeping things interesting, and I think it adds an element of reality to all that's going on, because this is, I think, how people would react. Now, one of the other relationships that is sort of threatened by these costs of secrets are Karolina and Nico. Primarily because Karolina's been secretly meeting with Jonah to learn a bit more about her powers, a bit more about herself. And through that, we get some real interesting insights this week. First off, I love how they're having Jonah work with Karolina. There does seem to be an honest emotional connection. And it's really hard to tell with Jonah because he is very good at lying and manipulating to everyone around him, as we find out by episode 6 here. But starting things out, that he has this urge to connect, that he needs to talk with her. They're running out of time, wants to show her the truth of their family. Even to the point where she was talking about using the excuse to dress up as Disney princess to walk around on Hollywood Boulevard and try and find a way to make money that way. Dangerous, by the way. That's a very sticky crowd down there of the heroes and stars and characters dressing up for pictures and money. Very territorial down there. But when she reveals that to Jonah, that he's pulling out cash. What, you need some money? Here, take it all. I don't, and she's like, no, that's not what I want from you. Which, again, I think it's a perfect line being drawn for Karolina. I'm using this as an excuse. I'm not trying to get money. I don't want to be more indebted to you. Is sort of how the feeling that I was getting to that. But Jonah's whole response here really does seem this honest urge to connect with Karolina, even showing the whole injury and how he's degrading and taking down into the ship. Yet really, they're really crafting what feels like an authentic emotional connection here. How true that is, we're going to have to find out down the road, because Jonah, if anything, is not very trustworthy in his emotional expression. But he's pulling off a good job right here. Love the little descent down into the hole, and we get and that's what sort of surprised me. We got the full exposure knowledge. Both to Karolina and honestly, and with the rest of Pride later on after the whole Robert encounter. He really displays it out. We go full Ancient Aliens on this. He's from another planet. This is his ship. He just wants to get there, and he wants to get out of here. He wants to get home. Really, we could have had our suspicions, but they just lay it all out. And that's one thing I'm really enjoying about this season also is everything is moving at such a pace where the secrets, while they have a high cost, aren't being held for too long. They're really telling us as an audience what is going on. They're really propelling the story forward well. And I've been really sort of appreciating this. Interesting thing about his ship, though. Is it made up of energy beings? Are the energy beings trapped inside the ship? He's not trying to release them at any point. There definitely is a consciousness. That's something that the Yorks have picked up with the whole language, and Karolina goes and reaches down and meet your brother, and does that little hand connection through that. These are all alive for sure. But Jonah has given no interest or expression about releasing them. He does say, I'm here, I want to save them. But how? Is it just getting off the planet? Because none of that really seems to ultimately make sense. And is it a crew? Yeah, okay, I like the idea of I was able to eject, but they were trapped, and I've been here since before man. Just wandering around all my own for a really long time. Where did you get the secret sacrifices at that point? Was it like small creatures? Pre-humans? Neanderthals? Australopithecus? Don't know, we didn't get too specific on that. But I did. Again, it kind of opened up that whole ancient aliens. Maybe Jonah helped create civilization in certain areas in order for him to get sacrifices so that he could stay alive. A lot of questions come up here for sure. But ultimately, I think it comes down to who is actually in the ship. Is the ship made up of these beings? Are they just in there? Why then has he not tried to release any of them? Or is if he releases them, well then they start to be age degrade like he is and thus would need human sacrifices? A lot of questions come up with this. But all being answered, I think, really well. But, of course, despite all of these connections that Karolina is having with Jonah, the fact that she is not fully trusting of him, I think, was the great move. What was the encounter discussion between Frank and Leslie, where Leslie was saying how much that she was duped, and Frank saying, well, I hope our daughter is smarter than you were. Dig! Burn! Very harsh. But possibly true, because we do end episode 5 with Karolina coming up to Mom being like, look, I've been talking with Dad here, and before I commit to anything, I want the truth. You tell me. Which I think is a great sense, a great move on her part. She wasn't totally receptive of what her mom is saying and the info she does, but what she does get, of course, is that Jonah is responsible for Amy's death. Important distinction here, though. I think she said that Jonah killed Amy, when really that was her mom who killed Amy. Blew things up. On Jonah's orders, I am sure. But I think that's an important distinction, and denying that little part of the story, I think, is going to end up costing Leslie big time, because we see the effect that has on Nico's relationship with her. Because, of course, holding this secret connection with Dad has really degraded her and Nico, Karolina and Nico's relationship. As it would. You can't be fully open with the partner that you're with. There are going to be stresses, there are going to be schisms, and that's going to split things apart. Ultimately, they do seem, unlike Gert and Chase, they do seem to reach back out and sort of come back together. At least until Karolina was able to let Gert know about Amy. Because, kind of like what Alex was warning about, don't keep secrets from Nico, especially around Amy. She doesn't like that. Knowing now ultimately who really is responsible for Amy's loss, that's going to have a heavy effect on Nico right there, as we sort of saw on her face. So Pride, of course, still following their pursuit of taking out Jonah, trying a few different elements in these episodes. First off, of course, we have the Yorkses trying the new serum derived from Jonah's DNA. Can it affect whatever is down in the ship? I love that whole thing. I love seeing the Yorkses. They're like the comic relief, constant comic relief of the show. I really appreciate Dale's nervousness and Stacy trying to calm him down as they're getting into the dig site. That was great. The experiment worked wonderfully. Interesting little result here, of course, is they take a sample of what is down in the ship. Not entirely sure how they did that. Since the ship seemed to be a little bit buried when Jonah and Karolina end up descending down into there. Curious where they got that sample of, and also how they gathered the sample without kind of hurting whatever is down there and causing an earthquake reaction there. They seem to have no problem getting their sample. That didn't cause any problem. Testing their serum on it, okay, plus side, serum seems to work very quickly. Small amount, killed whatever was in the dish. Downside, still connected to the ship down in the hole. Which is, of course, what causes that earthquake. Since it happens at the same time, very easy to sort of make that connection. A bigger question, though, is what about Jonah? I mean, it's hard to tell if that had sort of any reaction. I don't remember seeing anything particular off of Jonah. I mean, but he's been sort of degrading over these past few episodes, so it's sort of hard to tell specifically if this use of the serum had kind of a large effect on Jonah as well. But one can only imagine that if he was able to take out the ship, if they're able to take a small sample, kill it, and have that affect the ship, then certainly would killing Jonah affect the ship as well? They do seem to be connected. Or killing the ship, is that going to affect Jonah in the same way? These are important questions. And they could probably have asked Jonah, since he did show up right there. And get that great bit of just Dale like, yeah, they saw us. We're just backing up. We're just going to get right out of here. We're not going to ask any questions. We're going to go. But kind of like how we see the kids dealing with the high cost of secrets, we're seeing that effect over here on Pride, as well as Leslie reacting not to positively find out that Jonah's been connecting with Karolina behind her back. And of course, later on, we do get a little bit of that between Janet and the Yorkses when Janet reveals that she ran into Chase. However, that's not so much of a secret because she pretty much told them right away. So, I mean, I understand Stacy being upset, feeling that she's not being connected in with her daughter, with Gert, such there. Maybe curious why Gert reached out to Janet and not her. But I think that's more of just a parental hurt, is why is my kid not connecting with me? Not quite the same as the whole secrets bit. But this does get for Robert to make his big step-up move to take care of Jonah. And I have to say, I mentioned it earlier, I love that line. My secret is because nobody suspects me. Everybody underestimates me. And that whole scene in dealing with Jonah, I thought was done so well from Robert's part. He really is in a position of strength. He's calm, he's cool, he's interacting with Jonah almost as you know, the one-on-one, as compatriots, as on the same level. But he's not backing down at all. I think maybe with his whiskey on ice was just one extra little move for Robert to just sort of poke at Jonah right there, putting his, I guess, very expensive whiskey on ice. I'm not a whiskey drinker. I can't really tell the difference right there, except that all whiskey is nasty to me. But I love that sequence, and the fact that Robert is using the technology of the bracelet that was used to help repress Karolina's powers, which he picked up after he had found, after the battle with Mom there, Tina. But able to take that power, take that technology, and use it against Jonah, I thought was brilliant and unexpected. Not what I thought that he was doing. And at first, as soon as Jonah started feeling all woozy, I was like, oh, did he poison? Couldn't have poisoned the whiskey. Jonah didn't have any whiskey. Did he poison the glass? You know, or the bottle or something, and that's how it got in. But when we see the little lasers around and see that it's that type of repressive technology being used, again, brilliant. Totally unexpected. Used especially again. They use user security in order to protect all of these offices. That's how I'm easy to get in. It's perfect choices right there. Wasn't expecting the Gaborum twins, the two older ladies there. I forget their names, but they're not important. To knock him in the back. We had a little bit of I guess, foreshadowing in with that. When Frank was escorted in earlier, when Jonah was kind of asking him, I need you to get a sacrifice. You know, we do have a little foreshadowing of those two characters, of how connected they are with Jonah and how defensive they are with him. So that they pop up was kind of a full, I think, payoff of that earlier scene. We're really seeing, they are really committed, and obviously have no judgment on Jonah with the freaky skin degradation and everything that's going on. Was very surprised that Robert was still alive, though. But I think this is part of Jonah's game of playing that he needs everybody, and he is more than happy to just leave when everything is done. And I think that throws Pride off more than anything else. That Jonah seems to be forthright about, look, I just need you for this, I need you for this, and I need you for this. And then we can all go our separate ways and everything will be okay. Janet not very supportive of that. What would you say if when Stacy and Dale told her, oh yeah, we get to keep the book and everything will just be fine. It's like, well, that sounds like another one of Jonah's lies. I think we can believe that about as much as, it's too good to be true. I think we can believe that about as much as anything else that Jonah tells us. Again, really enjoying Janet's sort of personal evolution this season. But Jonah does seem to sort of let the Wilders off the hook right there. Again, a great way to sort of separate everything and almost make a move to seem like it's supportive of that lie. I need you guys for this, I need you for this, and I need you for this. And the Wilders, you are done. I don't need you anymore. You can leave. And lets them. It doesn't try to kill them again. Gives them a little bit of time. So that when he goes after Jeffrey, it's really beautifully done. And that is one of the things, in Barry and other, in episode 6, there were a few, and they're peppered out, but I'm going to use these as examples, a few kind of cliches, tropisms, that were just rather obviously done. First off, of course, is Jeffrey. Because Jonah has let Jeffrey and Catherine go. You're fine, I'm not going to need you. And then we get that shot of Jeffrey training, telling his trainer, you ever have something on your back that you just can't get away from? That's just, I mean, obviously, this whole situation is bothering Jeffrey, but he doesn't pay any attention to it. And then when he goes to the locker, again, it is step by step. Mysterious noise? Where's that coming from? Calling out to the guy that was just there? He's not answering. Let me go wander and look around. I mean, it was perfect. And then he left his gun. Jeffrey, the gangbanger, the suspicious one, the tough guy. That's his superpower. Is it super? He's got a gun and he's a badass. He's an ex-gang member. But leaves his gun. Doesn't even bother hiding it in his little way too thin towels. You know, I mean, that I would have expected to have been like the gangster move to do. But no, he just gets sucked right into it. So as soon as Jonah pops up in the steam room with a glowing extendy fingers, I was honestly at that point surprised that Jeffrey wasn't dead. I thought that he was totally goners at that point. Though apparently just knocked him out and then dragged him to the church, which is fine because everybody's at the ceremony, so nobody else is around. Same reason why the kids are going there. Jonah knows that he can. And pulls Jeffrey in to sort of suck his life out of, which, thankfully, being saved by the kids. Which, again, is sort of an interesting alternate scenario we're dealing with, is apparently for years and years, the ceremony had to be done in the Wilder house, in the basement, with the red robes on, and all the praise and things like that. Apparently not necessary at all. Works better if you just take the casket and bring it up. Why not do the sacrifices in the church? Would make all of the runaways, the Gaborum runaways, totally unsuspicious. It's all right there. You don't even need the Pride members around, really. You just need one or two, just to put her in the box. So, yeah, at this point, ceremony's all out the air. But I guess if you're a dying alien, then you just need a sacrifice. It can be anyone. The other real big trope is the... no matter what you tell me, it's not going to change anything. And then you tell them, and then it changes. Specifically, of course, I'm talking about Karolina and Nico, which I was just hitting on their whole final discussion, where they seem to be coming back together in a relationship, but not entirely sure. At least sleeping in the same bed, because it's more comfortable and safer that way. But yeah, Karolina's whole line of, I've got something I got to tell you, but it can really change things. Nothing is ever going to change. Again, sort of reflecting back to that conversation between Gert and Molly. This is a family here that will never change, that will always have your back no matter what happens. Which is funny because, of course, then Gert's decision does, in fact, hurt her relationship with Chase. But here we have Nico's thing is, well, I just need to tell you then, Jonah killed your sister. We're good now, right? I'm glad I told you. Let's come in for a hug. And, of course, yeah. It is going to totally change Nico's point of view on things. So, look, tropes and cliches, they're part of shows, but also got to point them out when they happen. All right, a couple of small things. One, and it's just an aside, Cheese Whiz? Cheesesteak is made with Cheese Whiz and not cheese? I did not know that. I'm not from Philadelphia, the birthplace of cheesesteaks, and they make really good ones. So I can't confirm or deny that, but that was sort of a surprising statement to hear. would Victor know that? He doesn't seem like a cheese whiz kind of guy. All right, best line of the episodes goes to Alex when Karolina goes to ask for her advice and talking with Nico is, sure, because I'm just an NPC in the MMORG of all of your lives. Perfectly nerdy response. And for those non-gamers out there, NPC is a non-player character. It's anything, any video game that you are playing with. They sort of hit on that in Jumanji, if you saw that. And an MMORG, massively multiplayer online role-player game, kind of like Warcraft and such. Bunch of characters out there playing and interacting and role-playing. So it's it's a perfect nerd statement is, yeah, I'm just the guy on the side in the rest of your lives type of thing. But done in perfect gamer terms, which I really appreciated. I also really enjoyed Gert's little psychic conversation with Lace. It was very sweet. It sounded like he's talking to the kid caught in a divorce. Like, yeah, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Don't be upset. It was just, again, it was nice. I mean, especially considering Gert's previous conversation with Molly about trying to make things okay about family and the choices will be behind you. Now, Gert has to go and kind of self-sacrifice because she can't stand being in her own skin anymore without this. It was kind of a nice little moment. And, you know, always appreciate bringing Lace into the conversation a bit. So, yeah, I thought that was a cute, well-done little scene. Oh, and I guess for clarification, I guess Jeffrey did kill his boss. Shot him, killed him, and that's what Darius took the fall for. 10 years, I was thinking it was only assault and not necessarily murder, maybe reduced manslaughter or something like that. Not sure how that legally came across, but that was a good little bit of extra info. And I also really appreciated Jeffrey's reaction to Catherine about framing him like he was my brother, he had an honor. They had an agreement, they had sorted things out. And still Catherine sacrificed it. So by end, Karolina seems to be a little more suspicious of Jonah. But of course, Nico now knows that Amy's death is at least Jonah's responsibility. Probably he's going to also find out that it was actually Leslie that did it. And that's going to make things even worse. Probably a little more conflict between Nico and Karolina. Jonah, still sick, but maybe a little bit better. Did seem to get a little bit powered up. At least facially looked a little clear, a little less the dead skin from the brief connection there with Jeffrey. So Jeffrey's still alive, but I think it did give a little bit of power by a little bit more time for Jonah to finish his plan. Whereas Jeffrey, alive and now tied up in a straitjacket in Alex's basement. This is my house now. I ask the questions. It is such a perfect turnaround. And again, as we still have a lot of interesting dynamics between parents and kids, the one dynamic that's been pretty constant, definitely this season and through the second half of last season, is Alex, tired of his parents, really does not have a lick of trust there. So it's going to be really interesting to see where that little one-on-one dynamic now is going to go. Is Alex going to pull further away from his parents, you know, believe his decision on them was all right, or are they going to start to find a little common ground and maybe come a little bit closer? One thing's definitely for sure, it's going to get interesting, and I'm sure some answers are coming Alex's way. As for now, like I said, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you enjoyed it, as always, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, toss them right down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Like I said, quick, easy, one button press. You'll catch the rest of this. Plus, we got so many things coming up this spring. Don't miss them. You won't if you're a subscriber. Do that by clicking this button right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here that you can check out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.